There's a fire that burns in the bones of witches and anarchists alike, a wild, relentless spark that refuses to be domesticated. It snarls at authority, spits at imposed order, and howls in the face of conformity. It is the part of us that remembers we were not born to obey, that the sacred is not something handed down by institutions, but something we conjure, claim, and craft ourselves. This fire is the birthplace of both magic and revolt. Anarchy and witchcraft have always been kindred spirits, even if they haven't always spoken the same language. One tears down unjust systems, the other reclaims power that was never meant to be given away. Where one raises a black flag, the other draws a circle in salt. Both reject the idea that power must flow from above, that gods, governments, or gurus have the right to dictate the shape of our lives. They are not merely compatible, they are symbiotic. Each gives strength to the other. Witchcraft is not just a spiritual path, it is a defiant act of self-sovereignty. It's the witch standing at the edge of the village, feared and misunderstood, yet holding an ancient knowledge that empowers her beyond the reach of kings or priests. Anarchy is not chaos. It is the refusal to bow to systems that dehumanize, centralize, and commodify. Both refuse to be tamed. Both demand that we think, act, and believe for ourselves. This video is a celebration and exploration of that kinship. We'll strip away the misconceptions, dig into the roots, and explore the places where the anarchist and the witch share the same ground. We'll talk history, philosophy, and most importantly, praxis. Because Punk Magick isn't interested in abstract ideology. It wants dirt under its nails, candle wax on its floor, ink bleeding through Zine pages. It wants spells that hex the machine and rituals that liberate the soul. Anarchy gets a bad rap. Say the word out loud and most people picture Molotovs, burning cities, and mindless chaos. It's a term smeared by media, misunderstood by the mainstream, and treated like a dirty secret, even by some who actually walk its path. But anarchy isn't about destruction for its own sake. It's about creation without chains. It's not lawlessness, but freedom. Not disorder, but refusal. A refusal to be ruled, owned, or managed by systems that never had your consent. At its core, anarchy is the belief that no one has the right to impose authority over others. That includes governments, corporations, religious hierarchies, and yes, even self-declared high priests and self-styled occult masters. Anarchy says power belongs to everyone, or no one at all. It's a philosophy of mutual aid, autonomy, decentralization, and radical responsibility. It's not about everyone doing whatever they want at the expense of others. It's about people coming together without coercion, building communities and systems rooted in consent, cooperation, and trust, not dominance. Anarchism rejects top-down structures because they rot from the inside. Give one person or one group power over others, and eventually they'll use it to serve themselves. Anarchy doesn't say we shouldn't organize. It says we shouldn't be ruled. There's a big difference. In a way, it's deeply magical. The anarchist worldview insists that meaning and order aren't handed down. They're made, person to person, from the ground up. That truth echoes loudly in the witch's path. Just as we craft our own rituals, beliefs, and symbols, anarchism asks us to craft our own politics, our own ethics, our own world. The DIY ethic of punk culture, the zines, the affinity groups, they're all expressions of an anarchic spirit that says, fuck waiting for permission. Build it yourself. Break what breaks you. Help each other survive and thrive, even if the state won't, especially if it won't. Anarchy is not utopia. It's not some idealized dream of a perfect society. It's messy. It's difficult. It demands that we take real responsibility, not just for ourselves, but for each other. It asks more of us than obedience ever could. But that's the point. Freedom is never clean. It's raw, bloodied, and holy. So when we talk about anarchy in the context of magic, we're not talking about dressing up as revolutionaries or play-acting rebellion. We're talking about building a spiritual practice and a life that refuses to submit to false gods. We're talking about tearing down every throne, including the ones in our own heads. Anarchy is sacred disorder. It's the fertile chaos before creation. And in that wild, dangerous space, we find power. Witchcraft has always been political. The moment you step outside sanctioned religion, declare your own relationship with the unseen, and claim personal power in a world built on control, you've made a political statement, whether you meant to or not. Witchcraft threatens power because it redistributes it. It says, I do not need a priest. I do not need your God. I do not need your permission to speak with spirits, to heal, to curse, to create meaning. That is not just spiritual, it is revolutionary. Historically, witches were often the outcasts, the healers, the midwives, the cunning folk, people who operated outside the structures of church and state. When institutions wanted absolute control, witches were a threat. They couldn't be bought, couldn't be silenced, couldn't be made to kneel. So they were burned, drowned, tortured, vilified. The witch hunts weren't just moral panics, they were tools of control, ways to crush rebellion, target the non-conforming, and dismantle folk knowledge that threatened elite monopolies on truth and power. To be a witch in such a world is to remember that power is not something given from above. It is something remembered, reclaimed, and reawakened. It's blood memory and bone wisdom. It's the scream of the oppressed echoing through spellcraft. Every charm for protection, every hex against abusers, every circle drawn in defiance of a system that once as quiet and broken, that is political magic. Even today, the figure of the witch remains dangerous, not because she rides broomsticks or brews potions, but because she refuses to obey. She is the archetype of the sovereign self, the one who says no and means it. In a world that profits off submission, that kind of power is terrifying. Modern witchcraft, especially in its punk or anarchic forms, often embraces that danger. It rejects the idea of gurus and hierarchies, refusing to let tradition become tyranny. It invites experimentation, deconstruction, and rebellion. It honors the weird, the queer, the marginal, the broken, beautiful. It says, your trauma does not disqualify you from power. It may be the crucible that forges it. To cast a spell is to change reality by force of will. That's not passive. That's not neutral. That's radical. It means you believe the world is not fixed. It can be bent, reshaped, rewritten. That belief alone is enough to shake empires. So yes, witchcraft is political. It always has been. Every time we light a candle with intent, every time we speak sacred words in the dark, we are reclaiming what was taken. We are refusing erasure. We are building power from the margins, not the throne. And there is nothing more dangerous than that. Anarchy and witchcraft don't just walk the same path, they are the same path, spoken in different tongues. Strip away the symbols, the jargon, the cultural overlays, and you're left with the same core impulse. Refuse control, reclaim power, create your own reality. That's not coincidence, it's symmetry. These two forces, one political, one spiritual, were always destined to meet in the blood and fire of revolution. Both anarchists and witches are builders of parallel worlds. The anarchist doesn't just tear down the system, they create new forms of living, horizontal networks, mutual aid groups, autonomous zones. The witch doesn't just reject religious orthodoxy. They conjure new mythologies, craft personal rituals, and commune with spirits on their own terms. Each tradition is a living experiment in self-determination. Neither asks for permission, neither waits for rescue. Both are expressions of raw autonomy in a world that teaches obedience from birth. Anarchy and witchcraft are decentralized by nature. There's no pope of anarchy, no true hierarchy in authentic witchcraft. Sure, there are traditions and elders, but at the heart of both is the belief that you get to decide. You build your own path. You find your truth. You take responsibility for your actions. That rejection of top-down authority is what binds them so tightly together. It's why anarchist witches exist at all. Where institutional religion says you must, the witch says I choose. Where the state says you belong to us, the anarchist says I belong to no one. Both are heresies in a culture that survives by keeping people compliant, scared, and divided. Even their tools mirror each other. The anarchist's Zion is the witch's book of shadows, DIY knowledge passed hand to hand, never corporatized. The affinity group is the coven, small, autonomous, bonded by trust, not control. The direct action is the ritual, targeted, intentional, designed to change reality. Whether you're blocking a pipeline or summoning ancestral spirits, the pattern is the same. Will plus action equals transformation. This alignment goes deeper than metaphor. It's philosophical. Anarchism insists that systems must serve the people, not dominate them. Witchcraft insists that sacred is personal, not institutional. Both challenge the idea that authority is inherent, that some are born to rule and others to follow. They reject hierarchy not just as unfair, but as unnatural. And let's be honest, if you've ever done serious magic, you know the world isn't what we're told. There are spirits in machines, consciousness in dirt, strange cracks in reality where things leak through. Anarchy makes sense in that context. It reflects the cosmology where the universe isn't locked into rigid chains, where things are wild, emergent, plural, and shifting. Just like anarchist societies, magical reality is decentralized and weird as fuck. That's not a flaw, that's the design. Both anarchy and witchcraft are threats because they don't just dream of other worlds, they build them quietly, loudly, in bedrooms, forests, city streets, basements, back alleys, and altars made of broken glass and intention. They're incompatible with systems that rely on obedience, standardization, and control. That's why they fit together so well, because both offer us the same thing, freedom. Not as a slogan, but as a sacred, lived truth. A freedom that costs something. A freedom that demands courage, clarity, and craft. Not a fantasy, but a practice. In that space, between spell and sabotage, between prayer and protest, between punk show and sacred rite, that's where the anarchist witch lives. Not a contradiction, not a hybrid. A natural evolution. Theory is only the map. Praxis is walking barefoot into the wild. If anarchist witchcraft is a philosophy, then rituals of resistance are how we live it. Spell work, sabotage, prayer, protest, all bleeding into each other. This isn't about quoting dusty grimoires. This is punk magic. DIY, dirty-fingered, spit and sigil magic. The kind you carve into walls and shout into storm winds. The kind that actually does something. Let's start with sigils, because they're one of the anarchists' favorite magical tools. No priest, no permission, no ancient language required. Just will, intention, and craft. You want to hex a system? Make a sigil for collapsing capitalist power structures, then chalk it onto bank walls, etch it onto protest signs, slip it under the CEO's car, charge it with rage, feed it with every act of defiance. Sigils are portable protest, custom-coded spells for rebellion. Then there's protection magic, essential when you're navigating a world built to crush the weird and wild. Create wards from scrap metal, bone, tech parts, whatever you can get your hands on. Enchant your boots, your phone, your mask. Build a servitor to ride with you, unseen, watching your back during a demonstration, or when you walk through a hostile street. An anarchist witch walks into conflict with shields up and spirits at their side. Collective rituals don't need robes or ritual swords, they need intention and presence. Gather your affinity group, your coven, your crew. Light candles on a rooftop. Cast a circle with graffiti, noise, and spit. Summon your spirits, not to ask for power, but to share it. Write a ritual that invokes resistance, binds community, or mourns the dead the state won't name. Magic comes stronger when it's shared, especially when it comes from the ground up, not top down. Zines, or zines as some people say, I prefer the word zines, are spell books. Don't underestimate the magic of words printed, stapled, and handed from hand to hand. They carry spells, manifestos, protection charms, psychic self-defense guides. Curse the page with sacred ink, slip it through mailboxes, leave them in cafes, libraries, on cop car windshields. A punk witch's grimoire might look more like a protest flyer, and that's perfect. Direct action magic is the blood and bones of praxis. Think beyond candles and chants. Plant a garden in a corporate wasteland and call it a spell of reclamation. Hand sigil-marked food parcels on fences for the unhoused and call it a blessing. Curse systems with silence, noise, sex, paint, chaos. Let your spell work interfere with the machine, not just mirror it. And don't forget techno magic. Our world runs on digital blood, so bleed into it. Code servitors into your phone. Hide spells in metadata. Sigilize your profile pictures. Turn your social media feed into a hypersigil that drips resistance and raw power with every scroll. The digital is not separate, it's another altar. The point is this: your magic doesn't have to be clean, aesthetic, or correct. It has to be true. Rituals of resistance are messy, improvised, local, personal. They're built from what you have, not what you're told you need. You don't need a temple, you are the temple. You don't need a high priest, you are the priest. The spell isn't what you say, it's what you do. Punk magic is alive in every act of rebellion that refuses to forget the sacred. In every moment where you choose to fight, create, protect, destroy on your own terms. This is the work of the anarchist witch, to enchant the cracks in the system, to build spells out of resistance, to make every curse a prayer and every blessing a bomb. Living as an anarchist witch isn't just about casting spells or quoting Bakunin between rituals. It's a way of being in the world, a constant refusal to be shaped by systems that were never made for us, and daily act of rebuilding ourselves from the wreckage. It's not about phase, it's not a vibe, it's a commitment to freedom, to defiance, to the sacred chaos of becoming. You don't need to live in a squat or burn effigies every weekend. No, you can. You live the rebellion in the way you speak, in what you refuse, in how you build your life, ritual by ritual, choice by choice. It's in feeding your community instead of feeding the machine. It's in honoring your ancestors and your anarchist lineage. It's in hexing your trauma, blessing your boundaries, warding your joy like it's treasure, because it is. This isn't easy work. It demands daily awareness. It asks you to look clearly at where power lives in your life, who holds it, how it moves, and what you're doing to disrupt or reclaim it. It asks you to create sacred space, even when the world is on fire, especially then, to let your witchcraft guide your resistance, and your resistance feed your witchcraft until the line between the two disappears. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be awake. To remember that magic isn't separate from your politics, and politics aren't separate from your spirit. Every act of care, defiance, joy, and refusal is part of the spell. Every moment you choose to live on your terms is a revolution. To light your candles, lace your boots, charge your sigils, sharpen your words. Whether you're alone in your room or shoulder to shoulder in the streets, the rebellion lives in you. It breathes with you, and every day you wake up, and choose it again, you win. The world won't give you freedom, but you can take it, spell by spell, step by step, witch by witch.